amounts of FOMO. Wells only and his guests are not responsible for any losses you may accrue for having weak hands. Where the haters at? Yeah, bitches still ain't showed up. And now, right, we got Hex, flawless uptime. People thought this was a joke. Now they're mad at the chart. This is Whales Only. Glad you guys can make it out. I'm making some claims that are pretty outlandish, but I can back them up. Boom. End of story. There is no other crypto out there, so don't get it twisted. If you don't understand where you're parking your money, you're gonna pay the consequences for that, and that's just how the cookie crumbles. Boom. We're obliterating everybody, literally. There is nobody else that comes close to what Hex has done. Right? The reality is that I want to be rich as fuck. There's only one way to be rich as fuck. That's by sitting on your ass the longest. Yep. That's it. Yep. That's the secret. The guy well told you. Richard done told you. I done told you. Kareem done told you. Maddie done told you. Everybody done told you. Everybody done told you. Shit, motherfuckers still acting like they don't know. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
100% safe. There's plenty of games left.
Valiant done told you. Yo, everybody said it. Man, hey, you know what it is, man? Everybody done told you. Y'all deep. Everybody. My God. Ex-Asians, bro. Everybody. Australians, man. Everybody gets it. Yo, when is it told you? Dollar told you. Everybody done told you. It's crazy. What's going on, family? A happy Thursday to all. Let me make sure I'm not on mute because I don't even see the screen real quick. All right, I'm good to go. So, shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for tuning in on this fine Thursday afternoon. It's already 12 p.m. here, past 12 p.m. here, midday on the Eastern Coast. And as you guys have probably been seeing, there's a whole lot going on out there. And by a whole lot, I mean a whole lot of fuckery, really, is the best way to put it. The headlines, man, yo, they're just out of control. If you were around for the first crisis, and by the first crisis, I mean the one from 12 years ago or whatever, then everything that you're seeing now is not different. And that's a very bad thing. And the reason that's a bad thing is because we know what the end result is going to be. So there's no guessing, right? There shouldn't be. The only thing we do not know is how the end result will end up becoming the end result. But the thing about it is that that never matters, right? I mean, how many crises do we have to live through to understand this? I don't know. But apparently an infinite number, right? When it comes to the crowd. Because if there's one thing that I've learned to be true is that individuals might be able to make their own assessments. But once you got those individuals amongst crowds, it's another thing. Whole another thing entirely. Give me 1 second, guys. I got a call coming in. I got to pick up. Sorry about that, guys. You know how that goes. Always when you can't afford the interruption, that the interruption presents itself. All right. So yeah, the headlines. If you've been around since the last 2007 or forward, then you have already seen this movie. You know how it's gonna play out. Um, the only thing is that we don't know how it's gonna get to where it's gonna go. But the good thing about that is that it doesn't matter, right? What matters is that you're preparing yourself and aligning yourself with reality as it changes, right? That's very important because it's almost impossible to tell who, what, when, where, and why, right? Like we could have guessed um, that they were gonna just, and I made this point to somebody earlier. You got to understand they're very, very adamant about destroying crypto, right? I mean, not destroying it, but not letting it permeate, even though it's too late. Um, but you can see with the rhetoric, the narratives they're trying to set, the nonsense legislation they're trying to push, all the things that they continuously do that lend no results, right, to what they're trying to accomplish. Because if it did, well, um, maybe I'd have something to say about it. But you guys have probably figured out by now, I really don't ever have anything to say about anything in relation to crypto and regulation. And we've been over this 100 million times, right? Doesn't matter. Simply put, it just does not matter. So every time you hear people start rambling on about regulation and crypto, blah, 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 you know what to do. Just ignore them because they clearly don't know what they're talking about if they're trying to talk about it because it does not apply. Plain and simple. Doesn't. If it did, well, I think the market would let you know, right? The market would definitely let you know. So let me say what's up to everybody in the chat because I'm really bad at acknowledging those that come through, even though I do. But, I don't really take time out for that. So just a quick shout out to everybody out there that's Jesus Christ. It's like people know when I'm just not trying to do work. They just want to start bothering me. Fuck. Anyway, let me get through this information so we can get to the good part of this. Cause I got too much crap going on. These motherfuckers just smell me when I'm having fun. So let me get this crap done and out the way. All right. So you guys see them pushing their pedophilia in every aspect of society. They use they use mentally ill people that think that they're not what they are as adults that they've cultivated from youth, right? Because what's happened in the past 30 years? In the past 30 years, people have been taught to think it's okay to not be what the fuck they are. That's exactly what the fuck has happened in the past 30 years. And fact remains, you got a fucking problem if you don't think you are what you are. These are the same people that are running around doing all the crazy shit. Period. Are they hired? 90% of the odds are that they're hired. But guess what? Nobody's doing anything, nobody's saying anything, and that's the end result. So what does it look like? What it looks like. But this is how things change through time, right? Because what's happened? At one point in time, there wasn't a single commie lefty that would not back anything Biden and co would say. That is no longer the case. You are seeing divides happening in ways you never thought possible, right? And this is how you know change is afoot. But the thing that's important to understand is that it doesn't happen at the drop of a dime, right? These people have to continue to do the things that don't make sense in order for people to realize what we're tired of screaming at them about, right? Because clearly having a conversation does not work. It doesn't. That's why we are where we are now. Plain and simple. If it did work, having a conversation, well, we would not be seeing any of the things that we're seeing today. This notion of skin color and whatever have you would be irrelevant. It wouldn't be a focus. It wouldn't be a narrative driving points at every turn. And yeah, for sure. In America, it's everything because that's the way people are brought up to think here. But once you get across that point in your mind where you realize all that shit is fugazi, then you see a whole nother world open up because nobody actually cares. And once you realize that nobody actually cares, everything changes because you then have a completely different perspective when you're engaging other individuals, regardless of who they are and where they're from. Instead of being closed off, unless you're an introvert such as myself, you're not going to be predisposed to not engaging, right? Which is typical for people that are from two different places, right? They're shy, don't want to talk, blah, 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 blah. So the reality is, especially those of us that have been a part of Hexago for a while, we know that that's completely contra to reality. Diversity, while it's been fucked, for its good uses, uh, lends itself to different perspectives. What's what's the problem is when people don't know how to communicate, right? I mean, we see it all the time, especially in the crypto sphere. Hell, within our own community, people cannot accept the difference between a fact and an opinion. They can't. 99% of the time, people have a hard time. Yo, I swear, it never ceases to amaze me. Every time I get on the stream, it's a bunch of BS. What is it with these freaking people? Anyway, what the hell was I even saying? Yes. So, unfortunately, we have to continue to see these things occur and develop over time, right? Because having conversations is just not a part of what society has evolved into being able to do. So people suffer the consequences of that fact, right? It doesn't, that's not a reality or that's not an opinion. That's a fact. And we see it, right? We see it all of the time. And mind do not mind the robot in the background. That's some trading stuff. And that's assuming you even hear it. So the thing about communicating is that people's egos typically get in the way, right? Now, how can that type of statement be made with any kind of assurance? And it's really simple. It's just like I said, people cannot accept a fact versus their opinion. And you see it all the time just in this community. Period. I mean, just the whole correlation debate was one point that made it obvious. I mean, your opinion does not change the reality of something. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, where you're at, blah, 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 blah. None of that shit matters, man. It just doesn't. You got to accept what's true or suffer the consequences of your ignorance. That's just what it boils down to. There's no two ways about that. You think the world cares when you pick a crap coin that you didn't intend to lose your money in? I mean, this is another thing, right? Things happen that are completely out of your control and you think you're in control of them. Why do you think you can control the facts? You can't, right? And this is a big problem it's societal as well, right? It's not like it's really, I mean, I'm guess I'm making that point. Um, but it's just really important to understand that, because at the end of the day, how are we going to build a better future if we can't even communicate with reality as, the focus? Not people's opinions, not what they think. You know, if a motherfucker's an engineer and we need some shit built that requires an engineer, well, why the fuck is some cook gonna do it? I don't, just because he think he can do it, or because he's been studying or whatever. Like, bro, if you don't got the evidence, the qualifications, the track record, or whatever you want to call it, to back it up, you gotta sit down. Just that simple, right? Because at the end of the day, it's not to disrespect the individual. It's to respect ourselves and ensure that things are done as they should be, not as how people feel they should be done, right? Which is what we see left and right. We see that left and right, hands down. Um, Now why? I don't know, but when you look at politics, the fact that the world even permeates or even rotates with that ridiculousness as some type of, like, if it's serious, right? Like, people take politics seriously, and it's a joke, it's a show, right? It's not for anybody that has a brain, period. Politics is something to be used if people don't ever realize that it's a joke. That's literally all politics is. So maybe all the stupid things these so-called leaders, which are clearly pedos, maybe people will wake up to that reality eventually, and realize that the notion of what they thought society was, or what made sense of society to be, maybe they'll come to the realization that it's just flat out wrong. Do you really need some pedo telling you what to do with your kids? Because that's where we're at. And if it's not obvious to you, well, nobody gives a fuck about you because you're not relevant, because you're clearly not paying attention. And that's by choice, right? Because everybody can see what the hell is going on right now. It's not like they're hiding anymore, because they are not, right? And this is important because guess what? They're coming for people's kids. Now, if you don't got kids and you don't care, well, congrats. Nobody cares about you because you're not the future. Kids are. And I remember when I was a kid, I didn't understand that shit. But then I grew up and then I realized exactly what the fuck people meant. Because in my 20s, I was incapable of assisting or comporting or reporting outside of participating in a fucking fake war. And we're still suffering the consequences of all of that today. Nobody has benefited from anything that has been lied to people about for all that time, for all of that time, right? Um, all the wars were supposed to bring prosperity, peace, and freedom, right? Since the beginning of time, that's the narrative. And somehow it continues to persist. I really don't understand how. I don't know if it's, you know, maybe humans are really just more incompetent than we think. Because there's clearly no competence behind that notion succeeding time and time again. There simply is not. And I'll repeat my story once again, because I wasn't the only one, but I remember being brand new in the military and knowing I was about to go get deployed, within weeks of getting to my duty station. And this was the common. I was not unique in any way. This is what happened to everybody at that time. Got to my duty station weeks later, I'm getting deployed. In that time frame, in the interim between my being in my duty station and going to the field, out in the field as we call it, downrange, I tried to find every which way possible, like any normal human being would, to get the fuck out of that situation. And guess what? No success. Because it's just, there's nothing you can do once you consent, you see? And this is the thing that people do not understand. That's the biggest thing that people don't understand, is that consent is manufactured at every turn. I mean, look at to where it's brought us. It's brought us to the point where adults think it's okay to accept adults coming to work dressed up to work, a place of business, a place where people are supposed to be exchanging value, not fucking around playing dress up. I mean, this is really what's going on. So at the end of the day, what do you think becomes of that when there's no clarity in what's right and what's wrong? Well, we are seeing the fruits of that today. Crime is up in every facet. Doesn't matter what type of crime you're talking about. Period. New York is back damn near in the 70s. We can say it's in the 80s, except for the fact that buildings ain't being burned down, and that's yet. At the pace things are going, there's no way to tell where things are going to go. And then the question then becomes, because people are awake now, it's not 3 years ago. People are packing, people got guns, people are waiting. They are waiting this time. And how do I know? I know because I'm not the only one. I hear people talking, right? If you go outside and you interact with other human beings, well, you know what's going on. So, what will be the end result of all of this craziness? You know, we see the central banks doing their damnedest to establish their foothold because they have to. They can't. Everybody is rejecting CBDCs at every turn. States are passing legislation to ban the use, implementation, even testing of CBDCs nationwide. The upside here is that, guess who follows? Everybody else. Now, while you have states like California and New York that are going to do their best to not be benefactors to the people, right? That's what they do the best, right? Those states, and I live in New York, so you best believe I know best. Those states do their damnedest to ensure the people continue to suffer in the most appropriately psychological operative way. That's why I've changed my little avatar to that thing you see on the screen today, because that's what happens to everybody every single day. And if you can't read what the patch says, it goes, you've just been fucked by psyops, because physical wounds heal. Now, I'll repeat that again so you can digest that. You've just been fucked by psyops because physical wounds heal. Very important statement. At the end of the day, everybody always has an agenda. Nobody is doing anything. In the rare instance, right? In the rare instance, nobody is doing anything to benefit you out of the goodness of their heart. It's very rare. Everybody isn't rich at heart. Everybody ain't whales. Everybody just isn't out here giving out alpha for free or anything for free. And these are things you got to keep in mind, especially when you're out here playing in the fake crypto space, which a lot of you guys love to do, no matter how many times you're told not to. And hey, you'll learn, because guess what? That's how it fucking works. I'm gonna still tell you, and you're still not gonna listen, and your ass is just gonna end up losing money. And guess what? I'm gonna just laugh at you because it doesn't matter to me because I done told you. Where you think that song came from? It ain't a mistake. You better learn to listen. I mean, I don't know how many times I gotta be right for people to learn to listen, but pain is a good teacher. It's way better than me, that's for sure. And this is what we have to continue to just remember, because it's very easy to get caught up in other people's successes and failures, but you can't, because at the end of the day, right, it's just like we're out here trying to essentially save the fake crypto space and all the fake hexagons by helping them understand that they don't need to go anywhere else. They just need to stay right here and stop playing games, pretending to do things that they can't actually do. I mean, we see it, all manner of ways. Fake Richard Hards, right? Fake traders, right? Foxicans, right? I mean, they're all over. They come in all shapes, forms, and sizes. So you just got to be aware and not get swept up in their nonsense, because guess what? They're the ones that are going to ultimately benefit, not you, right? And there's a whole lot of psyops being played on people at all levels. Don't think that they don't happen at the community level as well. For sure they do. For sure they do. Because how is it that a person like me can get any hate at any point in time? But I get it. And so do other people that don't deserve it. But this just goes to show people with their own agendas will always persist to their own tune at the behest of their own desires, not at what's best for those in the community. And this is what's important for those in Hexago to understand. There's a whole lot of fake hexagons out there, and a lot of them are popular, but you wouldn't know that because you're not really in the know. But pay attention, because they're out there. They're out there perpetrating the fraud. And this is all relevant to crypto and what we're doing, because you got to remember, nobody works for anybody here. But some people seem to think that they do. No, nobody works for anybody here. That's critical to understand as we move forward through time, because you're going to be left to make your own financial decisions when the time comes, when you might or might not be capable of making them. Who's going to be there to save your ass then? Nobody. You better be ready, because that's just how it works. You hear a lot of fun talk, but nobody's ever going to really be there to help you out. That's why you, the individual, have to put in the work. Not pay mind and to lip service and nonsense that motherfuckers don't even know what they're talking about. Because that is what permeates in the crypto space. It does. You have to find a way to beat the ridiculousness that is the crypto space, because this is crypto. Nobody's going to do it for you. I mean, as soon as you try to find anything crypto related, you run into a scam. You can't find anything that's actually crypto related, right? I mean, it's such a thing that's so hard to see, because we're so close to all the alpha, right? As a hexagon, you don't even grasp what the hell I'm saying. You're probably like, what the fuck is Wells even talking about? Where is he seeing all this craziness? Where is he playing around that he's seeing stuff like this? I don't see it, right? You might not see it if you don't play around in the weird places, and that's good. I'm just telling you what you need to know so that you continue to do what you're doing, which isn't the right thing if you don't know what I'm talking about, right? So know where you're standing, know what your mission is, understand why you're doing this, Don't get swept up in somebody else's nonsense that isn't why you got here in the first place. If you're here for life changing wealth, it's not going to happen by plugging your money in shit coins and seeing what happens. There's a better way to do it. And there's lots of X's behind that way too. And they're a little more mathematically probable than just sticking some coin, sticking some change or some random coin that might or might not pan out. And the best part is when it rips, right? The shit coin, when it rips, everybody now knows it exists. All the motherfuckers that were in there at first, they dumping on you. And then you get all the losers that are the stragglers that come in at the top. And then they can't even exit at a loss because the liquidity gets yanked. I don't know how many times that happens, at least once a day, if not 10, 20 times a day. I mean, that's crypto in a nutshell. Crypto in a nutshell. Right there. So, um, you know, I, I could sit here and show you all the tricks and tips, but you just got to learn because it's so easy to get swept up in the mania of crowds. And once you think you got to beat on something that's better than Hex, that you think is better than Hex, not something that's better than Hex, something that you think is better than Hex, but it's actually not. That happens all the time to people, all the time. In fact, somebody was talking to me about a couple of them the other day. How often, how many times do we got to see the same nonsense before people learn to stop playing themselves? Right? It's like the pulse chain launch being imminent. Now everybody and their mama think they need to have a strategy for that. What strategy you need to have? You've been waiting for 2 years. Let everybody else figure out what they need to do and let them buy your bags at higher prices. Why are you acting like you got to pretend trade something you don't know what you're even doing? And then people get mad when they lose all their money. I don't get it. How can you be mad when you're out here pretending that you can play on a Major League Baseball field when you've never even played T-ball? Never mind Pee Wee. You've never even played T-ball. How the fuck are you stepping on to a Major League Baseball field with the pros? Like, this is how you need to think about it. You in the D League. You can't play in the NBA yet. Sit down. Sit down. Like, what are you doing? If you were that good of a speculator, you wouldn't even be here listening to me talking about Hex. That should be obvious. You would be speculating, not listening to some rando talking to stream. These are facts. Now, you might say, well, what are you doing streaming about it? Well, guess what? I can do both because I'm literally speculating while I'm streaming because I can do that. But you don't hear me preaching about that. You hear me preaching about DCA, long-term investing, saving your money, generating additional capital. Now, if you want to talk about generating additional capital via speculation, then sure, we can talk off sides, but I'm not streaming about that. Not in a way where it's promotional, where I'm going to be like, you need to be doing that. Only if you let me know you want to be doing that, will I say you need to be doing that. Because there's a better hustle than working, that's for sure. That's for sure. But you got to know what you're doing. Because it's not a game. It's the major leagues. Once you enter a market, you're playing with everybody. There is no segregation of skill. And I think people really do not want to accept that or want to appreciate that. You got to, because this is why you get rugged. You gotta respect risk. You can't be out here putting all your eggs in one basket, as they say, right? All these funny statements that they got them for a reason. But you got to understand what they mean. And if you don't know your history, you're not going to understand what they actually mean. You're going to think it means, oh, I got to put all my eggs in one basket, or I can't put all my eggs in one basket, when that's not what it means, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket does not mean to not invest in one thing. And that is exactly how it's interpreted, which is crazy to me, because that's a complete opposite interpretation that I have of it. So when I hear people out here thinking that they got a clue, I just laugh, because they don't. Because they're just putting money in random shit just because they think that that's what makes sense. Because, oh, we got to diversify. Okay, you have fun with that. Because that don't work. I mean, how many crises do we need to see before we accept the fact that that shit don't work? I mean, all markets roll when they're gonna roll. Period. There is no singular market that doesn't. Real estate, everything goes at once. Everything. The only thing that doesn't is precious metals when it's all rolling over. That's it. So, what say you? What say you? Do you really understand what diversification is? The fact is 99% of people do not. Right? And these are things, it's not just to beat a dead horse, but they're important things to understand. Because as we are out here trying to play the game of money, which again, on the very face of it is messed up in the first place. Because we need to have good money first and foremost. And we don't have that, which is why we need to think we got to do all these other things. These are things that they're important to really be able to wrap your head around, kind of grasp the severity of it. Right? It's like, yeah, banks are failing, but so what? You didn't know that was happening by the way everything's been going down? Like, nobody should even be surprised. Shouldn't even be surprising. Your reaction should be sanguine like mine. Oh, okay, cool, whatever. Next. Because that's what matters. What's next? We already knew the system was going to collapse. What we didn't know was how it was going to collapse. So now we know the banks are the way that they're going to collapse the system. Now, one thing I tried to mention earlier is how somebody was trying to say, oh, they're going to come for the crypto ramps, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, they're already doing that. Are you not paying attention? People got to wake up. You got to wake the fuck up. Banks are the fucking problem. Banks are the problem. So, yeah, they're coming for the fucking on-ramps, you dumbass. They don't want you to be using what they don't want you to be using. And they're already doing that. And you're too aloof to see that. Refine, sharpen that eye. Because it counts now. Now it counts. Every move counts, because Wales isn't going to be streaming 24/7 telling you everything about every headline. It's impossible. I got a life. So you got to start learning how to figure shit out. Because guess what? I might not stream about that one thing that you need to know about. Because I don't know what you got going on. You do, though. And that's why it's imperative that you are focused on what's going on as much as I am. Because they're stealing from you just like they're stealing from me. Just like they're stealing from your children and your grandchildren and your parents and your grandparents. I mean, it's in everybody's face. So it's not like it's not obvious, you know. So you got to really, really take a seat, sit down, focus on what's going on, and take a good look because it matters. You know, your afternoon siesta does not. The reality of what's going on, however, surely does. Because at the end of the day, your life is dependent on random people's decision making, not even your own. How are you even okay with that? I don't get that. I have never understood that shit about humans. How are you okay with some third party telling you how to live? I don't get that. I'm not. I don't even accept that. I don't even acknowledge it. And the only way I do is in the ways that I got to, like going to work. Because I gotta work. And that's only until I have to. That shit ain't permanent. And I'm gonna make sure of that. But everybody isn't on my frame of mind. So how are you okay with that? Right? That's what we gotta think about. I mean, you want to talk about generational wealth. What are you gonna do once you have all these funds? What's your next step after you quote unquote retire? You think you're just gonna be able to spend that money and that's it? Money's gonna magically appear again, or what? You gotta generate fiat income. You can't pretend to be willing to give up all your gains because that's just dumb. And if you don't know what you're doing tax wise, then you might want to figure it out. Because, like I tell you guys all the time, lots of people are out here giving their money away and they don't even know it because they don't want to read. And hey, more power to them. Somebody got to do it because it sure as hell ain't going to be me. However, it would be nice if y'all read and stopped giving the enemy ammunition. Just saying. A thought to consider because that's what you're doing. I mean, did we not see what happened on the 18th of April? The Treasury's balance. I mean, it swelled, it ballooned. It was news because people aren't used to seeing that. So again, things that are important to take note of. How are we gonna find our way in the mist? How are we gonna find our way in the mist? We can't, basically. You literally cannot. Pretending is never a solution. And that's just the most important thing to keep in mind. Because when you pretend, things come out of left field and you don't see them coming. That's really what's going on. And this is how people get blindsided. Bad things happen. You think you're good and then you're not. You know, why do you put yourself through that predicament when you don't have to do that? You don't have to do that. If you just prepared, you would be so much better off, right? I mean, it's kind of like mm, what's a good way of putting it? It's kind of like when you think about investing in something that just came out at first, right? You don't have any clue about anything that is going to do or nothing in regards to it, right? And I'm talking about not crypto. I mean, just like a stock, like an IPO or something like that, like a company, right? Because you're really guessing. Anytime you trade a stock or something like that, it's a guess. That's why you gotta have a strategy. That's why you gotta have a process. That's why you gotta have all these filters and layers to ensure you don't drop the ball, basically. Because it's human nature to drop the ball. It's not human nature to be a market participant and succeed. That's not natural for humans. Because humans always are driven by the madness of crowds. That's why people always buy the top and sell the bottom en masse. It's not unique to any individual. We all go through it. That's why the only people that succeed in markets are those that are able to separate themselves from that predicament of FOMOing in or FOMOing out, right? Whatever have you. Because that's the reality of markets. Markets function and are driven by humans and how they interact with it, not by anything else. You watch my first video. I literally break that down for like 3 hours straight. So do yourself the service and go check that out if you haven't seen it, because it's very important to understand, especially if you want to find success in the markets. Humans, right, drive price action. For example, let's take a look at this. Why not? Let's see here. Can you guys see that? Let me take a look. Yeah, you guys can see that. All right. So let me take all this crap off. So all morning, uh, the market traded lower from overnight. Right. This is like 2 in the morning Eastern Standard, which is like the top of the market, like 417, whatever have you. So that's what 417 to 463, 460. That's a 55-point drop, right, overnight. Now the market is loaded one side, right? Because everybody was short. So what is the market going to naturally do at that point in time? Well, it's going to kick everybody out. Just how it's going to go down. It's going to kick everybody out, and you either made money or you didn't. If your stop isn't tight, for example. And if it's not, then, tough luck. That's how markets work. Because now everybody that was shorting, below 88, guess what? Now they got to figure out what the hell they're going to do, because the market just came back. And they thought they were going to be able to ride the trend all day. But the market said, nah, we're not going to do that today. We're going to make you pay. So maybe now they're going to continue to close these shorts up until 97, 98. And then maybe the market will reverse again. And then maybe they'll hate themselves for shorting below. Right? I mean, that's just how markets do. Markets don't care, man. I mean, all the people that shorted down here thought they were good to go. They really thought they were good to go. They were below yesterday's low, below tonight's low, below this morning's low, below the most recent low, but they didn't get below this low. And the market just came here and said, like, nah, we're kind of tired. We're going to go on ahead and chill. It's lunchtime. And now all these guys and girls that shorted here, not looking too hot. They're definitely feeling the heat, especially if they held it this whole time, because that's 4 freaking hours, 3 hours. That's not a day trade. Man, that's an investment at that point. The whole objective of a day trade is for you to get in, get your money, and keep it moving. It's not for this to become an investment. So if you find yourself sitting there, you should probably rethink what you're doing, because you should not be doing that. And that's the whole point. So let's take a look at HEX. The sellers came back in full force, didn't they? You guys know how that goes. People are always going to be buying and selling. Right. And that's important to understand, especially if you understand the game, which is long term here. Because every dip is an opportunity to be taken advantage of. Right. Anybody that bought HEX down here, probably never going to see those prices again. If this is the true bear market bottom, we're never going to see these prices again, ever. Just like we didn't see big payday low prices. We're just never going to see them. So you missed your shot because you were waiting for something that wasn't ever going to come. Just because you got greedy. Because that's ultimately what it boils down to, right? That's why traders, they have winning positions become losers because they don't even move their stops. They only move their profit target. You know what I mean? They don't even think about taking any profits because they think they're gonna make $10,000 a day. They're not willing to do 4 days at 2,500 because that's how people really think, or not necessarily think, but that's how they move, and they don't realize they're moving like that. They don't realize they're not thinking straight. I mean, this is exactly why you saw people selling their hex to buy a crap coin at the top, so then not be able to get out. What are you gonna do? All we can do is laugh. We can't do nothing but laugh because that's how the cookie crumbles. So this is why you do best by ensuring yourself and being educated. That's why you gotta be educated, right? It's so easy to pretend to know something, but it helps to actually know it, right? We got banks failing left and right. Whatever time we have left with whatever seems to be occurring and with our financial system, it doesn't seem to be much, but whatever money you got, make sure you squirrel it away appropriately. You don't want to get caught slipping by not putting your money where it's supposed to go, because then what if you do have the ability to transact again? What if the system doesn't fall? What if crypto does become a main staple? What if the dollar just becomes a freaking thing to use and it just doesn't even matter anymore and it's just there, and then crypto becomes a main staple? Like, what if? Take some time and think about all the what ifs that could happen. Have conversations with people, those that know or don't know, whatever. Just think about these things because the decisions you make now will impact your future, right? Always. So let's take a look at the chart set and then we'll wrap it up. So this chart, we had hex rip yesterday, right? And today we see what that's looking like. Because people just can't help themselves. They just can't. So we're under 9.5%, as far as the percentage of the hexes being mined or staked, whatever. And that equates to 61.5 billion. And we were at 6.23 cents as of yesterday's close, I guess. Yeah, now we're at 6.12. So we're getting close. How many hex as of yesterday? 16. So today you probably get like 17, a little bit, 16 and a half. $1 invested for each since the launch of Hex in December 2013. The T-share got you 235x, Hex 34x, ETH 12, and BTC a meager 3x. Correlations. Now, the correlations are everything except the pink line. This line up here is a correlation between the T-share and Hex. And as you can see, that's essentially 1. That's why it's flat, meaning that they are correlated. However, T-share versus Bitcoin and ETH, and then Hex versus Bitcoin and ETH, those correlations are going to change over time, right? They're going to change with people's perception in Hex versus the rest of the market. That's why sometimes it's correlated, like as you see up here, where it's about 60 to 80% correlated, because people want to do or react to what the market is doing at large. And that's why then it drops below that all the way down here, where you don't see what the other market is doing impact our market, the HEX market, right? So that's essentially how that works. Below zero means not correlated. Above zero means correlated or decorrelated below zero. So if it's below zero, close to one, right? Like you see it only stops at point minus point 0.4. That means that they move somewhat in tandem. Somewhat in tandem. Excuse me for a second, guys. So they move somewhat in tandem, below zero. Zero means they don't move in tandem at all. They're not even closely related. So the fact that the negative side the range of the negative side is so restrictive, right? It's not even half a percent or it's not even 50% versus it reaching 85% on the upside. That's important because that literally lends a lot of validity to what I'm saying with respect to people reacting to what they see elsewhere above zero versus what you see below zero, which is barely any activity in terms of correlation, right? And the range is so limited. I mean, you have to understand that if you just sit down and try to find a bunch of dual correlation charts, they're not going to look like this. They're either on one side or the other, or they're just destroyed. So what we're getting here is unique. And it's important that you, the individual viewer, grasp that fact because your pocket depends on it, not mine. I already get it. So again, note the limited range to the downside from 0 to minus 0.4 versus 0 to 0.8 on the upside. Right now we're looking at 34 days, but everything still stays the same. Nothing's changed. The narrative that I'm letting you know is it's the same. The math does not change, and the implications behind the math doesn't change either. Because again, when do we see correlations above zero? Let's take a look. Everybody's buying here. Cool. This is the beginning or after what do you call it? Big payday. This is the dump. Everything was dumping around that time, if I remember correctly, which is the spike here. So let's take a look at up prices. Up price, drop, correlation. Drop in price, pick up in correlation. What a coinky dink. Spike up in correlation. Drop in price, drop in correlation. And then it continues with the pickup in price. So at this point, Hex has detached itself from the market, right? And then in this drop, it continued to kind of do so. Then it picked itself back up. But as you guys can see, this chart is letting you know what the Hex itself is actually doing versus the rest of the market. And that's how you got to look at this data. Because the most important anecdote to pull from this is that Hex is really doing its own thing. Because it doesn't do its own thing if it's below zero at any point in time. That's the key. This is a 55-day correlation, and as you guys can see, the range is much more restricted, right? We're not even reaching minus 0.3 down here from zero. And on the upside, we're really barely touching 70% on the upside. As you can see, we're not even getting close to 80, right? But the overall correlation for the whole history set of X versus ETH, excuse me, and Bitcoin and the T-shirt as well. So you read this across and down. So Hex versus the T-share is always going to be 1. That's what you see there. And then, or Hex versus Hex, and then Hex versus the T-share, 1, of course. And Hex versus ETH is going to be 20% because it's going to be slightly more correlated because they're on the same network. And then Bitcoin is 18%, right? And then when we look at ETH versus Bitcoin, we get 83% correlation, and vice versa. It's the same. Bitcoin versus ETH, 83% correlation. Now, what does that tell you regarding those two markets? pretty damn correlated, right? And this is what's important to understand. So here we have the T-share rate, 27,066 with the latest change reading coming in at 7.3 hex. Not too bad. T-share payout yesterday was 6.475 hex with a T-share price of 1,687. I mean, that's a rent. That's why you got to buy them T-shares when they're cheap, not when they cost $1,000. Try to be strategic about your DCAing with respect to what's actually going on in the market. Here is the T-share payout in fiat terms in blue. That's what you see in blue here, light blue, versus the price of HEX in pink. Here is the payout per T-share averages. You got 21-day in white, 34-day in, I guess, is yellow, 55-day in pink, and the red is the all-time average, the cumulative average. 21-day average is 6.534. 34-day is 6.52. 55-day is 6.48. So everything is pretty much in range, in the same range right now. As you guys look at this chart, you'll see that typically they'll be in range for some period of time. Then there'll be a pop, a reset, pop, reset, pop, reset, pop, reset. And when they're resetting, they're just all kind of in the same range. So this is pretty much the progression that we're seeing moving forward. So at some point in the future, we'll see a pop, and then it'll reset higher because that's just the standard. Right. Here we got the total hex payout for one T-share, 6,468.5 hex if you've held a T-share since the start. Average mine length in years is up to 6.96 years at this point in time. The change in cumulative T-shares is at we've lost 859,938 T-shares basically since big payday to now. But as you guys already know, because you've been watching, we've been below 10 million T-shares for some time now. Kind of happened all the way back here. Cumulative change in holders is 83,572. That number keeps inching higher, interestingly enough. Miners, however, stakers, that number flat. We can see the positive rate of change in holders here on this chart. That's what this chart is showing us, the rate of change. So we got a zero line here. The left-hand scale is showing us the rate versus the price on the right side. And here we got the rate of change, or the lack thereof, if I might say so myself, on the miner side. As you guys see, the rate of change is below zero, negative. So we're not experiencing any growth on the staker side. Not sure what's up with that. Looks like we just steady losing stakers, I guess. Staker retention is slightly below 77%. Here we got the miners that are no longer with us, and this number is definitely growing versus the staker count, right? And it's evident in the slope of both, right? This one is literally 45 degrees down and to the left, whereas this one is just going sideways. The current miners is just going sideways as of right now. Liquidity pools. So I don't know if it was like a drain or whatever, but we basically went from 60% to 40% from the previous day to yesterday. But as we saw, prices are lower today. So there's clearly been some additions back in the pool. Let me take a look. 7.7 million. About standard anyway. So the quantity of hex is what would be relevant there. So the USDC pool's up and the ETH pool is way up relative to the hex pool. And you even see that here, right? The hex to ETH ratio took a major drop, whereas the USDC to hex ratio did a slight uptick. Wasn't nothing crazy. And this is the actual minted inflation. As you guys know, 3.69 times 2 is greater than 7. So we're clearly not there yet, because this is from big payday to now, and it's been more than 2 years. Shoot, we're at 2.5. So you can even do 6 point or let's just do it. Why not? 3.69 times 2.5 years. That would give you total inflation of 9.225. Instead, we have a total inflation of 6.36. Therefore, If we divide by 6.36 and then subtract 1, that's how off we are from where we should be relative to what is supposed to be going on. 45% difference. All right, let's do it the proper way. 9.225. 30% off. So T-shares, HEX, the system itself, already deflationary, in case you're not getting it, because that's the point being made there. Cost of a T-share. So one T-share will cost you $16.87. 2 T-shares will cost you $8.43. 3 T-shares will cost you $5.62 a piece, right? And this is relative to how you're staking them, right? That's what your cost is going to be. And here we have the net payout per T-share in white, and this is what you don't see because the green line is a penalty per T-share, and that line is what gives us the actual payout per T-share, which is the red line. That's what we ultimately see. But the white line is what reality is for us. Oh, well, I guess the important thing here, which I'm tired of saying, I guess, is that up and to the right. That's going to continuously be what's going on, right? This is the point of the system being deflationary. This highlights it, etc. T-shirt rate changes impact. So the point of this chart is to just show the changes in the T-shirt rate and how the staking activity on the front end is not determinate. And we can see that just by how we had a downtrend here and the rate still went up, and we had an uptrend here and the rate still went up, right? It's because the T-share rate only changes based on the end staking activity, not on the staking activity. Very crucial point to understand. Here we have the T-share versus market cap. T-share market cap versus HEX market cap. Very important chart, if I do say so myself, because it just shows the importance of staking, right? That's what it's all about. That's why we talk about generating this generational wealth. It's easy to compound when time is doing the work. It's so much easier to compound when time is doing the work. And that's why with X you monetize time, right? You don't monetize your activity, which on a net basis is gonna be negative because you just have limited time, limited capability, limited ability to grasp what you need to do when you need to do it. It's hard out here to succeed 24/7 in markets. It's not easy, right? So how do we do it? How do people do it? Well, they focus, they learn, they try to find ways to make it happen. Whatever it takes in a lot of cases is what people do, right? But when it comes to having HEX, all of that pressure is essentially removed because time is doing the work. That's why over time, the T-shirt market cap versus the HEX market cap has outpaced it in terms of growth, right? From big payday to now, we've seen it grow from 0.3, right, as a percentage of HEX market cap to 0.46. Right, that's let me think, because you're reducing now. You're taking a percentage and making that and getting a percentage from that. So we went from 30% to 40%, right? That's like a 25% increase or a 30% increase just in value, just because of time. Because clearly there's a reduction in the count of T-shares. Capiche? So this value is essentially making itself along with the price activity of HEX, right? And this is during a bear market, mind you. This is a 90% drop in here somewhere. And that's the power of T-shares. Clip that. T-share market cap versus total value locked. And again, this is the same story. Total value locked is literally the number of HEX that's staked multiplied by the price of HEX. Give me a second, guys, because we got this fire trucks in the background. All right, I think we're clear. And again, it's the same story, right? The T-share market cap is just the number of T-shares multiplied by the price of T-shares. And this is just showing you the rate of growth from 3 to 4.4 at this point in time, which is apparently an all-time high, um, of the value in T-shares versus the total value locked value of HEX. Now, of course, if you stake long and all that, it's not going to be the same thing, right? The value is going to be different. So we're looking at this value from a 1-day perspective. Either way, you know what this is telling you. This chart is telling you that you should be staking long. That's what this chart is telling you. Because over time, this is only going to grow greater versus total value locked to HEX. Just what it's going to be. Now this chart's a little weird. It's the HEX is being mined per T share, right? It's essentially the number of T shares divided by the number of HEX, or the number of HEX staked divided by the number of T shares, something like that. I can't remember. But point is, it's kind of like a barometer for the staking activity, right? And right now it's pretty low, and that's what we're seeing. So it's kind of like a measure of interest in staking, if you want to look at it that way. And as you guys have seen over time, it's been strong up until recently. But to supplant that, we're all good as participants in the system because there's less participants in the system. So the important thing to understand is that if we're onboarding people, you're essentially sharing this wealth, this yield that the system generates with others, right? So we are, in fact, a benevolent group of people by consistently trying to onboard people that need this, because a lot of people need this. It's not just us. We're lucky enough to know about it. Here is a T-shirt rate chart for perspective. As you might or might not know, the T-shirt rate started at 10,000. That's why you got 10 to the 4 here. You take a 1, the 0, and add 3 more, gives you 10,000, right? And all the way to the present rate of 27,000. So basically, the rate has grown 2.7x since the start, or 1.7x since the start. T-share in dollar terms, 16.87. It's a rent. At one point, it was 60 cents. That's right. That's why early adopters always get rewarded, folks. That's why it's imperative to keep your eyes peeled, understand HEX, what makes it different, unique, and all those things. So that way, the next time there's another HEX, if there is another HEX, you don't miss it. That's how I was able to immediately spot it, because I already know. You don't gotta. I don't gotta drop the ball more than 1 or 2 times, and I dropped the ball with Bitcoin, dropped the ball with Ethereum. Was not gonna drop the ball here, and I'm gonna say this emphatically: this thing we call HEX is infinitely superior to both Ethereum and Bitcoin. And keep in mind, keep in mind that HEX lives on Ethereum. So that's saying a whole lot. Total T shares available. Looking very scant out there with 2,626 T shares only available with respect to the market liquidity. So today there'll probably be more, but you got to understand, while you sleeping, somebody's creeping. And that's usually how it works. This is the last chart. This chart is I forgot to get you guys the other chart. I forgot. I'm gonna have it for the next time I stream. I promise. So this chart is kind of a 3D representation of the activity in Hex. The x-axis for each chart is the price of Hex. You just can't tell because the naming convention, I just never changed it. I gotta edit it. The y-axis is the bottom charts are showing you the current status for the holders on the left side and the stakers on the right side. Whereas, or miners, excuse me. Whereas the top quadrant of charts on the left side, you got the current change in holders and the change in the current miners or stakers. So that's all you're seeing here. Nothing fancy, nothing special, um, but important information nonetheless. Ooh, hold on, guys, because I got to fix an order. So yeah, these are just things that important to know what they do, how they function, why they function, and data should be the bedrock of your decision making process. You should not be making any decisions on a whim, on your thoughts, on your opinions, or none of that. Like, you should be making your decisions based on actionable data, because that's what's going to give you the confidence that you need to be sure that you're doing what you need to do. That's ultimately what life boils down to. That's why we're always seeking the guidance and counsel of those that know when we think we don't. So if we just did ourselves a favor and learned and maybe commiserated with those that also know so that we can also learn, right? Because the information is clearly out here to be shared. Nobody's trying to keep it to themselves. So, let's do it, right? Let's keep learning. Let's keep asking questions. Let's keep understanding this data, this information. Let's keep understanding that we're fortunate enough to be here, right? Be early adopters in Hex, understand the macro landscape, be able to take advantage of shorting S&P futures or whatever have you to make money to put it in Hex. I mean, this is the prime time of life, because in the future, well, the things you do now are going to become historic, because the world is changing whether we like it or not. And there's nothing that we can do to avoid that change except participate in it and ensure that it's what we want to see. And the only way we can do that is by being educated, having the data, and taking action. Thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate you guys. If you guys got any questions, now's the time. Otherwise, I'll just talk a little macro to wrap it up in the last 10 minutes, and that'll be that. Because there's really a whole lot going on. As you guys know, these banks are falling apart. Um, the Fed really don't know what to do. And what I mean with that is that, yeah, they're trying to destroy the system. It's a no-brainer from that perspective. However, how they are able to go about it, this is not what they wanted. And I've talked about this for a very long time. A very long time. What are they doing? What is their objective? Why are they doing what they're doing? And I was a very early, I guess, warning call, or whatever you want to have, whatever you want to name it, right? I was a early warning, an early warning system to everything that we're seeing right now, because I was talking about it in 2021. As soon as I started streaming, I was talking about it, basically. And people weren't trying to hear it. But I understood the significance and importance of having that conversation, because now is when it's really supremely important. You know, we have all the alpha in crypto, literally, right? We literally have all the alpha in crypto. And it really pains me that the entire community does not grasp that. There should be nobody at least in my opinion. There shouldn't be anybody in this community that doesn't understand that they are where they want to be. Everybody's where they ultimately want to be. The problem is that they can't see the forest for the trees because of price action. And that's sad because price action is to be taken advantage of. It's not to be disdained, it's not to be scared of, it's not to be anything. Right now, you're looking at a futures chart, at a futures S&P 500 chart. Right? This is what you're looking at right now. And the reason I'm talking about this is just to make a point. For every point, right, when the market goes from 420, from 41.25 on this chart that I got the cursor on, 41.25, 41.23, whatever. Let's say we're on 41.25.50. Let's make it around 41.25. For every point the market moves from 25 to 26 and 25 to 24, that's $50. Right? In the futures market, that's $50 for every tick or every point, every handle, every 4 ticks that the market moves. That's $50 for anybody that has exposure to this market. That's a reality, right? That's what's actually going on here. So people that were buying here took profits here, and the people that bought here, well, they mad that they bought there because now the price is all the way down here, right? So then the question becomes, well, we're breaking some type of support here because this line that I have here is telling me that, and these lines are a function of moving averages. They're not some secret sauce. It's just how I view the market is how I view the market, and it works really well. So if this line breaks today, does that increase the odds that we're going to see a move, a flush to 40.30? It could be. Don't know. We already touched the lower Bollinger Band at 40.66, and we've touched this lower support level on a daily basis of 40.72, which is pretty major. Now, the thing that's important to grasp is that time is a funny thing. And when it comes to markets, time is even funnier because it's, oh, hold on. Because it's really like waves, right? Waves crest in, crest out, right? We all know this. And it's no different when it comes to markets and price. Question is, do you know it? Do you know that? Do you look at charts enough to understand that that's what's happening? In most cases, most people don't realize that. So let's take a look at the tape. When we take a look at the tape, what does the market show us? This is a 5-minute chart. So it's not going to give you everything, but it's going to give you enough to be able to understand the point I'm trying to make. Right? So we see that the market dropped up here. Right? Drop all the way down to here. Rallied up again. We can see some resistance up here because this was support. Market tried to run up into it, couldn't even reach. Whack, collapsed again. Now, that's 2 days of straight down. Typically that's going to give you a run up because people are going to take profits. They're going to cover their shorts because this isn't like the stock market. There's no borrowing here. You're straight up selling or buying. That's it. So what you see overnight is just that. People taking profits or people being long because, short-term speculators. And at the tippity top, what do we see again? The market getting exhausted, the market heading lower. And guess what? It didn't even reach previous resistance, which was support again. It couldn't do it. It could only get up this high. That's how weak the market is. Right? Now, here we are again, middle of the day, regular trading session. Market opens typically at 9:30. The first thing the market does is dump. No surprise there. It ran up overnight. Shorts, yada yada. I already broke that down. And like I told you guys, the market took advantage of that after the open, right? Because again, you got professionals out here playing this game. They're not crypto people. These are professionals. They know what they're doing. So once they understood that the market was tipped short, what did they do? Run it higher. And then what? Well, now it looks like it's time to sell again. That's what it looks like, at least to me. So let's take a look here. Looks like you're running into some type of resistance with respect to volume, but if the market runs back up into this area, into this gap area here, odds are it's probably just gonna continue moving higher. And then anybody that was short above here is gonna start feeling some heat. Now, will the market keep running into that? No idea. Odds are we probably don't even run. Odds are we fail right here because the market is super weak. But the thing about it is you have to have every option mentally open. You can't, you really can't attach an idea to your activity in the market because if the market changes, you got to change with it. You don't matter. A drop of water does not matter in an ocean, basically. So markets are on edge, literally, right? And we see it, literally and figuratively. People that are out here giving us policy, they're on edge. They don't have a clue, right? Now, commodity prices were crashing. Damn, I'm mad I missed this at some point today. Um, and sad part is your cost of living isn't crashing. Gold is up, all-time highs, damn near. We don't got a long way to go before seeing those all-time highs in gold again. Cotton, you know, again, your cost of living is not dropping with these prices. What's going on? Natural gas, again, your cost of living is not dropping with these prices. What is going on? Right? Gasoline down here. Your cost of gas ain't down there. Dollar down there. Yeah, well, it feels like it. It feels actually like it's down here because it's not really worth anything. Same thing for all these currencies, right? You got the Australian dollar, the pound. Pound's been ripping actually, but still sucks because we're talking about it came from like 3.5 down to where it's at now, 1.25. So the pound, yeah, you could use some help. Canadian dollar, whatever. Canada's a lost cause. Euro, another lost cause. Japanese yen, another lost cause. Look, 2 zeros and a 7. Need I say more? New Zealand dollar, yeah, and it's just as bad as Australia, if not worse. Swiss franc, yeah, this is if you don't know, Switzerland is the capital of everything in terms of all the funny stuff that's going on. Then you should probably do some homework on Switzerland. There's a lot of good information out there regarding it. But yeah, rates. Looks like we're about to get a nice move lower in rates because rate prices look like they're gonna go higher, not lower. For now, at least, anyway. Right? That's what it looks like. So we got volatility spreads. Let me get the log off that. So what is this talking about? What is this saying? Why do I care about this? Well, the market always looks forward. It never looks backward, right? So what does that mean? What that means is, uh, what that means is that over time, the market is going to determine pricing based on volatility, right? Because volatility is a big component of the way options are priced because the VIX, this thing that everybody likes to talk about that they don't really know what it is just a measure of SPX, S&P 500, the actual index, 30-day put pricing. That's literally all it is. So if we're talking now, if you look at the futures, right, the futures are going to give you some type of representation of that, right? And that's essentially what these spreads at different durations do. So this one, we're looking at May through November. So this is a 6-month spread, right? So if this is going down, that means that the value of the front month is less than the value out 6 months in advance, meaning that volatility is costly 6 months ahead out into the future, which means that we'll take a look at this over here. Now this is a little advanced, so just bear with me. And if you know, it's hold on. Right. So here we go. It's this thing called volatility term structure. Right. Now, volatility term structure is important because it determines, like I just told you a little while ago, the pricing of how things are going to be in the near term. And it'll give you an idea of what's to come. That is one of the reasons I was able to determine that the market was going to drop, because your 6-month spread involved, along with all the other ones. I mean, you got your 4-month and your 3-month. I don't really need to look at 1, 2, because if 4, 5, and 6 are wide, then odds are 1, 2, and 3 are going to be too. So if you look at the back half of the first half, right, if that makes sense to you, this is what you see. You see that the front is priced at less than the back. So that means that there's expectations of volatility moving forward. And the market reacted to that. Right? Sorry, wrong index. Because this was literally the top, the local top. And that was 2 days ago. Right? What do we have? The day after. That was the Monday. But we were already stretched to the point of no return on the 28th. We were already in an extreme. And that's kind of the point. So, it's just about layering all these different things into your assessment set, right? Into your checklist of, is the market going to go this way or that way? Because that's really all you can do, right? It's almost impossible to say with any type of certainty that the market is going to do any specific thing, right? We can surmise that based on X activity, A, B, or C might happen. And I talk about that type of stuff all the time, right? So that's pretty much all I got, guys. I didn't really see any questions. Do I stream for make? Sometimes I'll do it. But nah, I don't have a stream just for that. No, I don't. So just to wrap it up, don't forget that we have all the alpha in crypto, period. And be out there and play safe. I'm still working on that money guide. Don't worry, it's coming. It's just taking a little longer than expected because I want to put some information in there that I think you guys need to understand. And it's really surrounding this whole topic of diversification. I've really taken some time to just think on it so I can relay it accordingly, because people need to understand that this notion of diversification is flawed and that you need to diversify your investments with respect to what makes sense, not with respect to just pissing in the wind and seeing what lands in what bucket. No, that's not what we're doing over here. So with that, appreciate you guys coming through. Thank you for your time today, and peace. Right? The reality is that I want to be rich as fuck. There's only one way to be rich as fuck. That's by sitting on your ass the longest. Yep. That's it. Yep. That's the secret. The guy well told you. Richard done told you. I done told you. Kareem done told you. Maddie done told you. Everybody done told you. Everybody that told you. Shit, motherfuckers still acting like they don't know. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
100% safe. There's plenty of games left.
Valiant done told you. Yo, everybody said it. Man, hey, you know what it is, man? Everybody that told you. Y'all deep, everybody.